All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm so glad that you guys could join us. Welcome to the Youth Justice Action webinar series hosted by the Office of Youth and Community Restoration. Today's webinar will focus on OYCR's Juvenile Justice Toolkit. My name is Victoria. I am a member of the OYCR's Youth Advisory Board. The purpose of the OYCR Youth Justice Action webinar series is to provide all juvenile justice stakeholders with information on practices and trends that highlight the shifting landscape of juvenile justice field to improve outcomes for children and families, youth, and communities. We have a few announcements to share before we introduce our guest speakers for today. Please be sure to keep your microphone muted during today's presentation. We welcome you to share your thoughts and questions in the chat throughout today's presentation. We will do our best to get through all of the questions, but if we are not able to, we will try to make a list and answer as many as we can. Today's webinar will be recorded and posted on the OYCR training resources page. You will receive a copy of the slides via email following the webinar. Today's session has been certified for 1 hour of STC credits. To receive credits for attending, you must stay for the duration of the webinar. In today's webinar, you will learn highlights from the Ombudsperson's report to the legislator. To review the full report, see the link that's in the chat. Today's speakers will be Elisa Hart and Ahmed Namir, and I will be passing it. Oh, sorry, my apologies. Elisa Hart serves as the Ombudsperson for the Office of Youth and Community Restoration, where she works to ensure youth voice and fairness are centered in California's youth justice system. A seasoned civil rights attorney with experience in both public service and private advocacy, Elisa previously served as OYCR's Chief Counsel and Chief of Staff, and as Deputy Legal Affairs Secretary in the Office of Governor Newsom. Elisa is a creative legal advocate deeply committed to helping government and serve communities more effectively, shaped by her years of litigating impacted cases at Public Council on Education, Homelessness, Immigration, and Justice Reform. Ahmed Namir is the chief of the Ombudsperson at the Office of Youth and Community Restoration, where he leads efforts to advance restorative justice grounded in healing, accountability, and systems change. With over 15 years in social services and mental health, Ahmed brings deep experience from both direct services and systems level work across community, nonprofit, and government sectors. Before joining OYCR, he managed operations at the California Office of the Foster Care Ombudsperson, where he championed trauma-responsive, culturally informed practices to protect foster youth rights and improve outcomes. So I will be passing it to our lovely speakers. I will be passing it to Elisa.
Thank you so much, Victoria. It's such an honor to be introduced by you. Really huge thanks to the Youth Advisory Board. I was saying just before the meeting that we sent the report out for feedback to the Youth Advisory Board, and they gave some just really incredible feedback. And honestly, it was like more detailed and incisive than from a lot of other reviewers. So really essential feedback for us. So thank you for everything that you do for the young people in California, and we're constantly inspired by you. So I'm really pleased to be here to present the OYCR Ombuds Division's first report to the legislature. As Victoria said, my name is Elisa Hartz, and I'm the Ombudsperson for OYCR. I've been with OYCR since its inception, first holding the role of counsel, and then as of January 2024, I took on the role of Ombudsperson. I'm joined today by Ahmed Nam, who's the chief of the division, and he started with the Ombuds Division in January of 2023, and has, as you heard, really deep and extensive experience in ombuds work, and so we're incredibly lucky to have him setting up our office and really leading the work that we're doing. So this presentation will focus on the Ombuds Division's first report to the legislature, which focuses on our work in 2024. And I'm going to first start by giving a little bit of background just on the Ombuds Division, what we do. Then we'll move into a summary of the report, and then look at some of our recommendations and findings. So as most people here probably know, the Ombuds Division has four main duties. First and foremost, our role is to investigate complaints relating to youth in juvenile facilities. So we have jurisdiction to investigate violations of rights, regulations, and harmful practices relating to youth who are committed to or detained in any of California's juvenile facilities. Complaints can come from youth. They can also come from families, attorneys, advocates, staff, community members, or others. They can, and they do, as we will see, come from all sorts of parties. Based on these complaints, we provide regular reports to the legislature about the numbers, trends, issues, and recommendations. That's what this first report is. Additionally, we are able to prepare special reports, which is something that we have not done to date, but we may well do in the future. Another key role that the Ombuds Division has is to educate youth on their rights while incarcerated, educate youth, families, community members, everyone about these rights. The recently adopted Youth Bill of Rights summarizes youth rights in law and regulation. The Ombuds Division developed the YBOR publications and is rolling out trainings on these rights. And then finally, the Ombuds Division is required by law to visit every juvenile facility at least once per year. Next slide, please. So although we've only been in existence for a few brief years, the authorities of the Ombuds Division have actually shifted since the inception. The division was created along with OYCR by SB 823, and it really is a new thing for California youth justice to have an ombudsperson at the state level who's able to investigate and try to resolve complaints in local facilities. Before SB 823, there was no state level ombudsperson who had jurisdiction to investigate complaints from local facilities. There was an ombudsperson for the Division of Juvenile Justice, DJJ, but they had jurisdiction only over complaints relating to the youth in DJJ. So that would be only a small fraction of the incarcerated youth in California. Our authority has evolved since SB 823 was adopted. So as early as July 1, 2022, the division's authorities were expanded to allow access to youth facilities and youth records with 48 hours notice to facilities. That was a big shift in clarifying our authority. On January 1st, 2023, the statute establishing the first Youth Bill of Rights for all youth in local juvenile justice facilities went into effect. As I mentioned, there was previously a Youth Bill of Rights, or sorry, I didn't mention this, but there was previously a Youth Bill of Rights for youth at DJJ, but not one that summarized the rights of youth in local facilities. So the Youth Bill of Rights it's codified in Welfare and Institutions Code section 224.71. The Youth Bill of Rights does not create new rights for youth, but it summarizes the existing rights of youth who are in facilities, and it really brings together a range of rights covering all areas of importance for incarcerated youth. The new law requires that the Youth Bill of Rights be posted in each juvenile facility and provided to youth and their families at intake. OYCR was charged with developing these materials in consultation with youth advocates and support groups, and groups representing children, families, children's facilities, and other interested parties, and we disseminated these materials. So that was another major statutory development since the division was established. And then finally, the last major development that I wanted to flag was AB 505, which went into effect on January 1st, 2024. This really provided the division with additional investigative tools. First of all, it provided the ombudsperson immediate access without notice to incarcerated youth, juvenile facilities, and youth records. And it added the Ombudsperson to Welfare and Institutions Code Section 827, which clarified that the Ombudsperson can access youth records without a court order. These clarifications and expanded investigative tools really gave our division substantially different ability to investigate complaints. And AB 505 is also the statute that mandated that the Ombudsperson visit each juvenile facility at least once per year. The Youth Bill of Rights, as I mentioned, is really a core document for the Ombuds Division. It allows youth, families, advocates, and others to understand the rights of incarcerated youth. The rights are summarized in youth-friendly language that OYCR developed in consultation with youth advocacy groups and others. And we solicited extensive public engagement and received feedback from many stakeholders on these materials, including probation departments and currently incarcerated youth. We offer two types of publications: a large-scale poster that's posted throughout the facility, including in living units, classrooms, and visiting areas. And additionally, we have small foldable brochure, I don't know if you can see this, which is provided to youth, parents, and guardians upon orientation, and we make these available to the public. Currently, we have these materials in both English and Spanish, and we're in the process of finalizing and printing these materials translated into 4 additional languages: Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, and Tagalog. The materials have been mailed out to county probation departments free of charge, and they're also available free of charge to other stakeholders and community members upon request. And the contact information for requesting materials is in the slide, and we can put it in the chat as well. So with that background, we will turn to the 2024 report. An electronic copy of the report, along with a summary, are available on our OYCR Ombuds Division webpage. The presentation will be reviewing just a part of the information that's presented in the report, and we encourage you to read the whole document if you've not already done so. We're going to be reviewing some of the key data points, some examples of complaints and how they were resolved, and a few of our recommendations and next steps. And I will just mention that although the Ombuds Division has been in existence since 2022, this report really focuses primarily on the 2024 data. And this is because the statutory regime, which we just discussed, really changed significantly and gave us different investigative tools and authorities as of January 1, 2024. Additionally, we have a new case management system that allows us to capture the data in a more detailed and nuanced way and really present that data in a report. So it made sense to focus on the 2024 data. There is an appendix that has the data from the work that was done prior to January 1, 2024, but today we'll really be focusing on the 2024 data. So standing up the division was a priority of OYCR since its inception in 2022. As I noted earlier, California never had an impartial state-level agency with the ability to investigate the allegations of rights violations and harmful practices. The standing up the division required a lot of work, including developing human resources, infrastructure, as well as policies and procedures. We had to hire and train new staff, create policies and procedures for complaint investigations around the state, really ensuring that our complaint investigations were consistent and fair and worked in California's diverse counties. We had to develop an infrastructure to receive complaints and document investigations, and then publicize the availability of the new resource to youth, families, and advocates. So this slide kind of highlights some critical milestones that we met by the end of 2024. So for the first time at the end of 2024, we were fully staffed for our initially allotted 6 positions. As of December 2024, we had the case management system that I mentioned previously that allows us to gather all of our casework and investigative materials and to generate flexible and nuanced reports. And additionally, we had a durable call center product because as you'll see, most of our complaints come by phone through what we call the helpline. It's really critical for us to have this kind of platform in place. By the end of 2024, we had also complied with AB 505's mandate to visit each facility at least once during the year, which we did. There are numerous facilities we visited multiple times each for investigative visits, in addition to the annual site visits. Those annual visits also give us an opportunity to speak with youth and explain the availability of the Ombuds resources and what we can do, what we can't do, and really to talk to them about the Youth Bill of Rights. Okay, Ahmed, your turn.
Great. Thanks, Elisa, and good afternoon, everyone. This is the total of the data that we're going to share with you in the next few slides. We have the total in 2024, as Elisa mentioned. We have 296 complaints that we have received during the year. And the breakdown for those complaints, as you see, we declined to investigate 84 of them, and we'll explain what that means. We have 25 were unsubstantiated, 21 were substantiated, no finding for 18, inconclusive 4, and 2 were referred out because they were not under our jurisdiction. We did 84 site visits, and we'll break down the site visits as well in the next few slides. We disseminated the Bill of Rights, 5,711 posters, and almost 40,000 the small brochures, the wallet-sized brochure, and the helpline received almost 2,500 calls during the 2024. This slide will the contact that we have received during the 2024. We have 173 complaints received by the youth. And we have 123 complaints received. We call it general complaint, which is the complaints that we receive from anyone else other than the youth, on behalf of the youth. We receive complaints from parents mainly. We have the attorney, we have a probation staff, we have advocate. Anyone that get in touch with the youth, they can actually call us and file a complaint on their behalf. We did 84 site visits between annual site visits that mandated by the passing of AB 505 and the investigative site visits. Publication requests, 31 publication requests that we received in additional to the initial dissemination of publication that we send directly from the print shop to all the facilities around the state. Information and referral, which is we receive calls, people asking general question, not really a complaint, just informational, and we provide the needed information if we know them or refer them to the right place. And we had training requests in the 2024 about the role of the Ombudsperson and the Bill of Rights. This the ethnicity and the race of the youth mainly calling, and you will see throughout the presentation all the orange color represented the youth and the navy blue is for the general or the adult complaints. The majority, as you see, 112 were Hispanic, Latino calling the helpline or filing a complaint. We have 69 complaints are Black and African American, 46 are multiracial, 39 white, Caucasian, 25 did not answer that question. Others, which is unknown, and we have Native American 2 and Middle Eastern 1.
This table is comparing the racial breakdown of youth in California's juvenile justice system with the racial breakdown of the youth referenced in our complaints. So we know that youth of color are vastly overrepresented in the juvenile justice population as a whole. And what this is showing is that when you're comparing the racial breakdown of the youth in the juvenile justice system to the youth referenced in complaints, we see that Black and white youth are concerned in more complaints compared to their population in the juvenile justice system. So for example, you can see that 18% represents the proportion of the juvenile justice population who are Black, but 32% of our complaints relate to Black youth. This is something that we'll be tracking and digging into over the years so that we can see if we can understand the trends. This is a similar slide to the prior one with the gender of referenced youth. So the vast majority of the youth are in the juvenile justice system are male youth, but this also shows the proportion of the complaints that we're receiving from youth of different genders. If we look at the next slide, we created a similar table to the table on race. So here you can see that while boys make up the largest share of the juvenile detention population and complaints, female and transgender youth file complaints at a higher rate than other incarcerated youth. So there's only 10% of the population are girls, but they are referred to in 17% of the complaints. So again, this is something that we will be tracking and looking at over the years.
Thanks, Elisa. This table shows the age of referenced youth for 2024. And as you see, the majority of them between the age of 16 to 21. We have a few complaints come from the youth age under 16, which is a small portion anyways in the juvenile justice system, and also the 24 to 25. The majority of the complaints comes from the youth in 16 to 21. This is the total complaints that we received in the year of 2024, 173 complaints from the youth and 123 general complaints, as I mentioned earlier, from anyone else other than the youth, but on behalf of the youth. Percentage-wise is 58% were actually youth and the 42% general complaints. Complaint origin, this is how we receive the complaints. We mentioned earlier, we have the helpline. We receive complaints through the website and email, in person, and usually in person happen when we are on the site visit. We meet with the youth and they ask sometimes to file a complaint. We usually encourage them to call the helpline that we can get all the details and they can go through the investigative intake that we do through our case management system. But also we're okay with receiving complaints while in person during the site visits. And also we receive complaints via mail. In 2024, we received only 8 complaints through the regular mail. But the majority, I see like about 85% of the complaints comes from the helpline. Complaints origin, for the general complaint, who was filing the complaint on behalf of the youth, the general complaint that I mentioned earlier, and the relationship to the youth. We have, as you see, parents usually is the large number. Parents can be either mom or dad. The majority of the complaints that we received. After that, we get actually the second in line is the attorneys, the public defenders or the youth attorneys. They call us to actually file a complaint as well. Teachers and substitute teachers within the facility, they call us. Others can be multiple, can be the credible messengers, can be some CVOs, they do work in the facilities, they call us and provide complaints, can be anonymous as well. Some complainant, they call and they don't want to reveal their identity or share their relationship to the youth. Healthcare providers can be either the mental health or the medical health within the facility. County staff can be actually staff from the probation facility, and community partners and non-parents relative. Some relatives they call, a small number can be siblings sometimes, cousin or any relatives to the youth. Throughout the year of 2024, we have investigated and closed this 94 out of 173 youth complaints, and we closed 60 general complaints out of 123. Total of 154 complaints were closed in the year of 2024.
So this table, the next few slides will focus on our closures, closure findings, and resolutions. So this table shows the closure findings for all of the cases that were closed in 2024. The first step in the process is the decision whether to investigate a complaint. So the ombudsperson has the discretion to decide whether to investigate a complaint or refer it out by statute. The reasons that we may decline to investigate a complaint may include the timeliness of the complaint, whether it's within our jurisdiction, whether the complainant has another available remedy or way of resolving the complaint that they could be reasonably be expected to use. They may be seeking a remedy that we cannot provide. If the complaint is trivial, frivolous, vexatious, or not made in good faith, we may not investigate. If the complainant doesn't provide necessary information, if we've previously made a determination on the same subject of the complaint, or if the complaint has already been resolved immediately after the complaint was made. So the declining to investigate number here looks very large. Declining to investigate in this table does not mean that we made the decision not to work on the complaint. What it means here is that for some of these cases, before sending a notification letter to the chief that we were investigating a complaint, which we're required to do, the issue may have been resolved or the youth was released. There is a lot of reasons why we may not be able to. Sometimes, for instance, we need more information when we're screening a complaint in order to decide whether to investigate it. And during that process, circumstances change. The complaint has been resolved during that process through, for instance, by using the grievance process, if we recommend the youth to try that before we do the investigation. So there's a lot of reasons why we may not get to the point of notifying a chief. And in this report, all of those were categorized as decline to investigate. In our 2025 report, we will be providing more nuanced data on the decline to investigate category of cases, because it's really not, just to distinguish between the complaints that we were impeded from investigating and the complaints that we elected not to investigate, because really the number that we say, no, we are not investigating this complaint is much, much smaller than it appears on this table. And so this is kind of an iterative process of improving our record keeping and reporting. Another step that we do when we receive a complaint is to decide whether to make a cross report. So we can continue an investigation even as we refer it to another body to investigate. Or sometimes if we don't have jurisdiction, we'll just refer the complaint entirely to another body to investigate. Certain counties have county ombudsmen or ombudspersons who are internal to probation and who are also a resource for youth. And sometimes they have more immediate access to the youth and to remedies within the facility. And so if appropriate, we will work with the county ombuds and do a cross referral to make sure that that the complaints are resolved as quickly as possible through whatever means is the most effective. But we would continue our own investigation unless we really feel that the issue is resolved by the local ombudsperson. We may also cross refer complaints to the BSCC, to the Department of Justice, to OYCR technical assistance, or other parties to kind of work in tandem as we are doing our own investigation. Next slide, please. This slide shows it's the same table as we saw for the closure findings previously, but it's divided by the youth complaints are represented in orange and the general complaints are in blue. So I want to talk now about the substantiated findings. So for the complaints where we did an investigation, we make a finding. It will be either substantiated, unsubstantiated, inconclusive, or no findings. So substantiated means that there is enough documented evidence to lead a reasonable person to accept the allegation as true. A substantiated finding may occur even if the complaint is not a violation of law or policy, if it's related to harmful conditions or practices in a juvenile facility. An unsubstantiated finding means that facts and evidence support the conclusion that the allegation is untrue or invalid. An inconclusive finding means that that we are not able to determine if an allegation is substantiated under our standard. For instance, there may be no records or documentation or impartial witnesses, or the action may occur too long ago, or there's a dispute of facts that cannot be resolved. So, for instance, if a youth says one thing, and the probation internal report says another thing, it's kind of a he said, she said situation, and we don't have any there. If there's no video or no audio or no other witnesses, then we can't make a conclusion. So those would be inconclusive. And then no findings. So that's a situation where we have done an investigation, but we close the case without a finding. There's a few reasons that we may make a no finding. I know it's a little confusing and we're working on revising this somewhat, but so for instance, if there's a complaint and the issue has already been brought to the attention of the probation department and they've already worked on implementing a solution that doesn't have anything to do with our notification of the complaint, then we might make a no finding finding. If the complainant withdraws the complaint, we might make no finding. If we lose touch with the complainant and can't move forward because we need more information, then we may make no findings. Or if we need more information and we can't get it, then there may not be a finding.
And Elisa, I'm sorry to interrupt. Before you go on, we've got several great questions. I think before we get too far away from, if you all are up for it,
Sure.
to answer a couple now, is that okay?
Yes.
The question was, is youth race gathered by asking the youth or from records? How do you determine race?
By asking the youth directly.
Ask them directly. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And if as I'm going through questions, if you ask the question and you have a follow-up, feel free to drop it in the chat. There's another question. Does the report include any complaints made specifically in regards to special education services?
There's nothing in the report specifically about special education. There's a later slide that shows the issues of the allegations, and it does include education complaints, but special education is not separately called out.
All right. And then I should have asked this as a follow-up to the first one. Are there efforts to track the nature of complaints by race? And that there's a commentary. It's well documented that Black youth face heightened rates of violence. It would be helpful to know if the data supports that to better implement protective measures.
That's a great question. And I think that's something that we will be able to do with our system, but we're not able to do it in this particular report. But I think going forward, one thing that I would love to look at is are there different types of complaints that are associated with the race of the youth, and also what are the findings on those allegations? So that's not something that we've reported on here, but it's definitely a research question that we should be able to answer hopefully in the near future.
Thank you for that. And this is back a couple slides related to the closure. There was the category about how many were declined to investigate was the status. The question was, does that mean that decline to investigate, that once a youth who complained is released, the complaint goes nowhere?
No, it does not mean that. So it depends on the nature of the complaint. So if the complaint is a complaint about a systemic issue, that is one that we're able to resolve or investigate without the participation of that particular youth, then we will continue with the investigation. If the complaint is like about a specific request from the youth, for instance, like if the youth wants to be in a different unit because they feel they're being bullied in the original unit, then that type of complaint is mooted out when they leave the facility. So unless it's like a pattern that we see in the facility, that's something that we won't investigate. And then sometimes if there are complaints where like we just need more information from the youth and we can no longer reach them, then we won't move forward with it. But absolutely, we continue to investigate systemic complaints related to systemic issues after a youth has been released, if it's possible for us to do so with the investigative tools that we have.
And another question related to that same categorization, there's a good question about whether that is how you flag complaints if the complainant refuses to speak to OYCR after complaint received. So the question is, do you mark those as declined to investigate if the reason is the complainant won't engage OYCR?
So there, the way we've done it in this report is the decline to investigate status is if we have not notified the chief that we're investigating. So it's kind of before we notify the chief. So if we would categorize that as decline to investigate if the youth will no longer speak to us if we have not already notified the chief. If we have notified the chief and then the youth refuses, or whoever the complainant is refuses to speak with us, then that would be categorized as no findings.
Related to that, and you may have, I was processing this question, so you may have addressed this, but just in case, I want to make sure I don't forget this one. Question is, if the department investigated prior to OYCR and already found the complaint substantiated, is it no findings?
Well, let's see. I think that's really a fact-specific question. I mean, if we do like to do our own investigation, and if we come to our own conclusion, even if the department has already investigated a complaint. So I think that I would need more detail about that question in order to answer it.
And for that question, feel free to drop in the chat if you want to give more context. One more about the decline to investigate. There's a question asking for more information about the rationale behind not notifying the department of all complaints, whether OYCR investigates or not, just for awareness.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something that we've heard from a few probation chiefs that they would like to know what complaints we're receiving that we are declining to investigate. Currently, our practice is not to notify the chiefs that we've received a complaint that we're not investigating, and we're thinking through right now whether it makes sense to let them know that we received complaints on certain topics, but we are not. We have decided not to move forward with them. So that is definitely on our radar, and we haven't kind of come to a conclusion on that. But currently, our practice is that we do not typically notify a chief that we are declining to investigate.
Thanks. Keep those questions coming. Thank you so much, Ahmed and Elisa, for answering those. There's two more I'm going to hold for after the next set of slides, just because I think they will be in good context with the rest of the data. So I'll hand it back to you all to finish up. Thanks. Keep the questions coming. I had not forgotten you if you posted one that we didn't ask yet.
Right. Thanks, Tara.
Okay. Great questions. So the report has a table, table 16, which provides all of the complaints, the numbers of complaints that we've received by counties, and whether they were from youth or from others. What we here we've just taken the top 10 counties where we've received complaints. I want to be clear that this is just complaints received by county. This is not, these are just allegations. So this is not findings. I think it's important to recognize that there may be many reasons why a county has more complaints than another county. Counties that have 0 complaints, there may be issues around youth being aware of the Ombudsperson resource or difficulties in contacting us. So I don't think that just having a higher number of complaints is in itself. I mean, it's important to really think about the various reasons why you might get more complaints from counties, some counties than others. There's obviously, based on the size of counties, you have more youth incarcerated. So that's really a significant point. But I would like to say that I think we really need to, it's good to have youth contacting us and families feeling free to contact us. And really, I really salute the counties that are working hard to give the young people unlimited access to the ombudsperson as they are required to. But just to clarify, these are only the complaints based on allegations. The next slide has complaints closure findings by county. So again, the full report has the closure findings in all of the counties, and here we just took the complaints where we had the highest number of closures in the counties, and these are complaints that were closed in 2024.
Okay, thanks, Elisa. This slide shows the time that we take to investigate and resolve complaints into 2024. As you see, like we have about 60 days, from 0 to 60 days. Like sometimes we close actually complaints within the same day. Sometimes we get a complaint like kind of easy fix. We discuss the complaint and we're able to resolve the issue, or if we decline to investigate, can be that within a short period of time. So we have between 0 to 60 days, which is the normal time for kind of casework in general. We have 61 of the complaints resolved within 2 months. Then we have 53 more than that, 61 to 120 days, and we have 100 complaints more than the average time. During the 2024, as we mentioned earlier, we were not fully staffed, definitely. We had just one staff that hired and onboarded or was like working. And we have 2 staffs who were hired early 2024, and it takes about 2 to 3 months to onboard an ombuds liaison to do the ombuds work. And we hired the last ombuds liaison late in the year. So we really, you can say, shortened staff, and you will see improvement in the year after when we compare to in the 2025. This definitely for till June 2025. You will see here the number of cases that 61 to 120 days more than the 121. It looks like there is some slight improvement. Definitely the number of cases is not the same, but definitely the percentage is showing that the cases that we resolve it within 61 to 120 days is faster and more than 2024. And at the end of the year, we'll complete the comparison when we have all by the end of the year.
So after we make a closure finding on a case, we do our investigation and we make our closure finding. Sometimes we'll refer the case for follow-up after our findings. So we make findings and recommendations. If our finding is substantiated and we believe that there was a violation of Title 15 regulations, then we refer the complaint to the Board of State and Community Corrections, BSCC, for follow-up. They regularly go to the facilities and inspect them for compliance with Title 15 violations. So if there's something that we found that we believe is a Title 15 violation, then we do refer that to the BSCC to follow up, and they report back to us on the steps that they've taken and whether they've determined if they are now in compliance with the issue that we identified. We can also, we are in a great position to be able to refer our findings to OYCR, other divisions of OYCR, the Health Policy Division, our Education Subject Matter Expert, or other subject matter experts. So if we identify issues around use of force, for instance, we can offer technical assistance by to the department by referring them to OYCR technical assistance, and then sometimes we refer to other entities for follow-up as well. We will be hopefully really building out the technical assistance referrals in this year. I think we've really started beefing that up, and it's one of the great advantages of having the Ombuds Division within OYCR is that we do have access to all of these excellent subject matter experts who can really, offer targeted technical assistance if we have identified and substantiated an issue. And sometimes we can make recommendations. We'll make recommendations even if we haven't found a rights violation. We can still make recommendations to the department to move towards best practices, even if it's not necessarily a rights violation or a harmful practice specifically.
This slide, I saw some question about the complaint issue and categories. This one gives us the majority of the complaints that we received, and this is just all the complaints that we received and all the complaint issues, not necessarily substantiated or not. But the majority of the complaints that we have received on 2024 were about the abuse and excessive use of force, staffing, and family engagement. And actually, it has been, at least in the last 6 months in 2024, actually, these 3 top complaint issues has been the main issues. They kind of alternate. Sometimes with staffing number 1, then family engagement 2, the top 1, top 2, top 3. And recently we had seen the food and nutrition become like number 4, sometimes number 3. But this actually the majority of the complaints that we received. We received the 444 and 41 complaint issue. And I know we mentioned we have 296 complaint only, but some complaints, they have multiple issues. So we get a complaint with the abuse, excessive use of force, education, and food, for example. Most of the complaints, actually, the average is about 2 to 3 complaint issue. But these are all the categories that we see, and the top, I would say the top 6 are or 7 are the main one that we have been received throughout 2024 and also in the first half of 2025. Abuse and excessive force, staffing issues, family engagement, and programming and incentives, and food and nutrition has been like the top 5 in the last probably a year and a half. This slide, it shows the breakdown of the site visits that the Ombuds team did during the year of 2024. We have, as we mentioned, by the passing of AB 505, we are mandated to do annual site visits to all the facilities within the state of California. We have 43 out of the 58 counties, they have juvenile facilities. And within those 43 counties, we have 133 facilities. They are actually in 62 locations. Like most of the counties, they have the juvenile hall, the camp, or the ranch within the same building, but they have the 3. So we are required to visit those facilities, and we did complete all of them in 2024. And investigative site visits, which is unannounced, we do those visits based on the complaints. Just the Ombuds team member will go to the facility in the morning without announcing any plans to visit this facility, and go there, meet with the youth, check the record, and conduct the investigative site visits, and that help us to determine the finding of the case. In 2025, just give you an idea about definitely there's we're gonna end up in 2025 doing the same 62 annual site visits, but for the investigative site visits, we actually increased a lot. By June 2025, we did 26 investigative site visits. Half of the year, we have more than last the whole entire year of 2024.
So I encourage you to take a look at the legislative report where we have a number of examples of the complaints, so you can really get a sense of the substantiated complaints and the unsubstantiated and no findings. Like, I think it will give you a sense of the issues that we're dealing with and how the complaints are being resolved. So I will just leave these 2 slides kind of with you, and please refer to to the legislative report for more information on that. And then the report also includes recommendations for improving the youth and community restoration system. And these recommendations derive both from our complaint investigations and from our site visits. And so again, there's a few examples here of some of just a few of the recommendations that we've made in the report. But again, please refer to the report for all of the recommendations that we've made this year. And then I think I just want to finally, we've talked about some of the things that we'll be working on for the priorities for this year. And that we hope that we will show reflected in the 2025 report, but we really want to decrease the complaint response times, increase the percentage of complaints investigated, and also just do better reporting on the work that we are doing on most of the complaints that we're receiving. And then finally, increasing our collaboration with OYCR technical assistance to really achieve meaningful resolutions for young people who are either making complaints or having complaints made on behalf of them. So I think that's the presentation, and we can take a few more questions.
And we'll get to as many of these as we possibly can. The next one after where I left off is about OYCR staff. The question is, does OYCR staff who are conducting investigations have specialized investigation training to make such findings?
That's a great question. We do extensive onboarding, as Ahmed said. We have policies and procedures document that is quite extensive, and we work very closely with staff and then supervise them during their investigations. And this is an area that we are beefing up. We're going to be doing some really intensive investigations trainings this year to, in the spirit of continuous improvement of our work and our approaches.
Thank you for that. Next question is, do you have data that articulates whether the complaint received is directly from you or someone on behalf of you?
So that would be Ahmed, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, this is very much what we mentioned earlier in one of the slides, that we have the youth complaints and the general complaints. All the orange ones, like 173, those are the complaints received directly from the youth. Also in our case management system, we have two different type of cases. We have the youth complaint. If the caller the youth, we initiate the youth complaint. If the caller anyone else other than the youth, that would be the general complaint. In the year of 2024, we have 173 youth complaints and 123 general complaints.
Thank you for that, Ahmed. And along the lines of the complaint data, there's a question about whether or not do we have complaint ratio data. So for example, a certain county has a certain number of complaints per 100 youth.
That's a great question. We don't have that in this report, but it's definitely something that we want to look into in terms of both the number of youth in the county, like the size of the county, the number of youth in the county, the number of incarcerated youth. Like I think all of those data points will be really interesting in terms of kind of lining it up with the number of complaints that we're getting, because that obviously makes if you have a county that has 100 youth incarcerated versus 5 youth incarcerated, it's really apples and oranges in terms of numbers.
Thank you for that. Along those same lines, is there data on the respective number of substantiated complaints per complaint type?
So if by complaint type you mean whether they're from youth or others, we do have that data, but we do not have data currently on the issue of the complaint, like whether the issue of the complaint was substantiated. That is something that I'm hoping that we will be able to do eventually, but it's kind of more advanced reporting.
Okay. Lastly, can OYCR share protocols and checklists that they use for site visits?
So our annual site visits are not an inspection. We're not the BSCC. We're not a regulatory body. We don't really have a checklist. We ask to see all of the parts of the facility where youth spend time and that impact youth, and where their property is stored. And then we ask to speak with youth and get their firsthand impressions of their experiences. So we don't, at this time, we don't have a checklist or a protocol like beyond the kind of general approach to the visits, which we do share with departments. But that's again something that we're working on potentially developing. And if we do end up having a checklist, we will certainly share that.
I want to just add to that quickly. We don't, as Alyssa mentioned, we don't have a checklist, but we have a written protocol for our team that when they go there, what is the process and what we should do during the annual or the investigative site visits. But we have a written document internally for our team to follow.
And we are at time, but I do see a hand raised and a follow-up question. So I think those that are able to stay on, we're happy to close out these last couple of questions. There was a follow-up from Louise about category of complaint within a county. You can start with that and we'll come over to Ahmad.
So if by category of a complaint within a county that they're referring to issues of complaints, which I think is probably what it's meant. We don't have that breakdown right now. Again, I think if we did, the purpose of a special report would be to, if we identify a trend in a county that we really want to dig into, we might do a special report on that issue. But right there, we're not presenting that information in the current report for 2024.
Thank you, Lisa. And then we'll end with Ahmad. I see your hand is up. You're welcome to unmute.
All right, thank you so much. I'm just curious if there are any measures, protocols, processes to protect those youth that make a report. Protect them against what? Against retaliation of any sort? Is that something that's being thought about or that's been managed already?
So we never reveal the identity of a complainant. If we get a complaint on an issue where that impacts like a whole unit or that isn't youth specific, then we do not share the identity. We do not actually use a name at all. There are certain issues where we must identify the youth in order to get the outcome that they're seeking. Like if it's a youth who says like, I was kicked out of my college class and I want to be back in, like obviously we need to use the youth's name in order to get the desired outcome. So I think the first thing that we do is we only use the youth's name when absolutely necessary. When we go to facilities and need to speak with the youth to do interviews, we'll often speak with multiple youth or just go to the unit and talk to a lot of people so that we're not singling out one person and exposing them to potential retaliation or being identified as what they call a snitch is also a big concern among youth. By law, departments are not permitted to retaliate against youth for making a complaint. And we really emphasize this with both with young people and with departments. And we raise issues of retaliation as soon as they come up so that departments can correct them. And I think really trying to get that message across. It's a tricky issue because we're obviously not in the facilities all the time, and retaliation can be hard to like actually prove. So we're still working on that, but we do take a lot of measures to try to protect youth as when we can, and we take the complaint allegations of retaliation very seriously, and we know that departments do as well.
Thank you so much, Lisa. There was one last follow-up that Ahmed took care of in the chat, so I think we're good on this. All right, so thank you to both of you. We'll hand it. Thank you for those of you who have stayed after a couple minutes. If we still have Mika, we'll hand it back to Mika to close this.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say thank you to Elisa and Ahmed for sharing out this report. And we thank you so much for being part of this webinar. And thank you to everyone who was engaged and had all these questions. That's really how we learned from all of this. And I know that they also reached out to the Youth Advisory Board. They got our input in all of this. And they've really helped us make our youth voice feel heard in this experience. So thank you to you guys for that. Now we have a few closing announcements as we end the webinar. We want to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the OYCR website by the end of this week, and you'll receive a copy of the slides via email. Also, we welcome you to take the survey to provide feedback on your experience in today's webinar. The link will be available in the chat. And then please save the date for the next webinar in the Youth Justice Action Series on Tuesday, August 19th at noon, where we will dive into the recent published report. Please don't give up on us. Stories from children and youth incarcerated in California. This compelling report explores youth justice through the perspective of young people who are currently and have been incarcerated. It also outlines insight and recommendations aimed at ensuring youth receive the support, stability, and understanding necessary to reach their full potential. Join us next month as we dive into the stories and themes of the report. You won't want to miss it. Use the link in the chat to register. And this concludes today's webinar. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you next month. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.